Hello, my name is Andrew Ross. Welcome to my lesson critique, which focuses on a Year 4, Unit 2 Curriculum to the Classroom Science lesson titled Examining Relationships of Living Things, One School 2017. Before I continue, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of my local community, which is the Woolgoorooga and the Bindal people, and I pay respect to elders past, present and emerging. The lesson critique is focused on improving Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives and pedagogies embedded within the lesson, their alignment to an evidence base, and the reasoning as to how these will be beneficial to improving the learning outcomes for students. Now, in support of this undertaking, a number of policy documents, frameworks, and research papers have been utilised, including the guiding principles and affirmations contained in the Queensland Curriculum and Assessment Authority's Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Perspective Statement, which forms the foundation for culturally appropriate curriculum development, specifically syllabuses, guidelines, resources, and advice. But this statement also provides guidance in terms of assessment, recognition and accreditation, professional development, human resources, policy, and communications, Department of Education and Training 2017. The implementation of these guiding principles ensures that all aspects of education products, services, and organisational culture are balanced, informed, and respectful of the diversity of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories and cultures. How is this reflected for teachers and students at the grassroots level? Well, embedding the evidence-based culturally appropriate practices within the classroom is fundamental with respect to a responsive approach to teaching and learning strategies that caters to the needs of not only Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students, but all students. This is supported by the Department of Education and Training's Embedding Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Perspectives in Schools, or ETSIPS. ETSIPS strongly evidences an enhanced educational experience for all students as a result of embedding Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives, as students are exposed to a rich and accurate understanding of Australian history and culture, coupled with a deep understanding of how Australia has become the nation it is today, and ways in which we can move forward together, which can assist with reaching the goal of reconciliation. Acknowledging, valuing, and respecting both Western and Indigenous systems as equal systems provides an opportunity for new ways of effective education, which is what this lesson critique aims to achieve. Furthermore, the Australian Professional Standards for Teachers promotes the implementation of a comprehensive understanding and respect for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories, cultures, and languages amongst educators, with an emphasis on inclusion of these factors in lessons and more broadly in the classroom and school community. That's from the Australian Institute for Teaching and School Leadership, or AITSL. So let's take a closer look at the lesson. Now, on face value, the lesson recognises differentiation at a baseline level. This is evident in the unit overview, with a statement acknowledging the vast quantities of learning associated with Aboriginal peoples and Torres Strait Islander peoples' histories and cultures, and a statement regarding the active participation in Indigenous ways of learning and knowing being attributed to a memorable experience. However, this focus is somewhat overlooked as the lesson progresses, highlighting the opportunity for adaptations and improvements to be made in an effort to further enhance learning opportunities for all students, particularly with reference to the aforementioned implementation of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives and the application of associated pedagogical strategies throughout the unit. In reflection of the original lesson critique and assessment task 2 and the feedback received, I took a closer look at the various pedagogical approaches and perspectives I attempted to embed within the lesson. Some key components such as community links, land links, story sharing, symbols and images, and learning maps are evidenced as effective through Dr. Tyson Yunkaporta's 8 Ways of Learning. This model identifies 8 Indigenous knowledge systems that assist with informing the most appropriate teaching and learning strategies upon which to base the delivery of the content within this lesson. So the What Works program makes reference to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's maintenance of cultural identity and ongoing participation in respected cultural practices as paramount regardless of geographical location. Further, ETSIPS highlights the fundamental aspect of embedding Indigenous perspectives into the curriculum through community connection and partnerships with local Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, Department of Education and Training. This presents an opportunity for the introduction of a local elder or Indigenous community member to the lesson as a way to provide relevant and authentic learning for all students. The inclusion of an elder or recognised Indigenous community member is evidenced as having a profound effect on student engagement, ultimately emphasising the significance of the learning content, NACADA 2001. Grant 2000 determines that adopting such approaches to learning opportunities for students creates a pathway for students to connect with culture and their community. I'm fortunate enough to work with a Wulgurugaba traditional owner, Mr. Ashley Saltner, who I consulted with in relation to making adaptations to this lesson. He emphasised the importance of community connection within schools and shared with me how he would share stories and local language with the students in this lesson and connect the lesson to learning about local plants and animals, which would ultimately provide them with a more realistic and authentic learning opportunity. Further to the community connection with someone such as Ashley, including an acknowledgement of country or, if possible, a traditional welcome as presented by a local traditional owner, coupled with an explanation of the underlying concept of acknowledging the traditional inhabitants of the local area, helps build students' awareness and knowledge of the rich history and culture of not only their local area, but more broadly the various language, social and nation groups of Aboriginal Australia. This can be further enhanced with the inclusion of the Aboriginal language map, which attempts to represent all of the language, tribal and nation groups of Indigenous people of Australia. So with a focus on linking the learning associated within the lesson to the land, as the class explores the relationship between living things, students will be provided with a realistic and authentic opportunity to connect with country through an excursion out of the classroom. This undertaking allows students to make contextual links with local plants and animals as evidenced by Harrison 2011, but also allows for the adoption of a student inquiry-based approach as they aim to understand the intent of the lesson and with respect to native animals and plants that coexisted with Indigenous people prior to the arrival of British migrants, Australian Curriculum and Assessment Authority. Other considerations with reference to an excursion would include gaining permission from the appropriate landowners to explore and use the land for the excursion, gaining permission from parents, and conducting a risk assessment as to ensure the safety and well-being of all students. Further attempts to include Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander pedagogies within the lesson as evidenced by Yunka Porter's 8 Ways of Learning is the notion of story sharing. In the original lesson, there are a number of classroom-based discussions, which are primarily led by the teacher. Strengthening the connection between students and their engagement in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander ways of learning includes modifying these classroom-based discussions to include dialogue circles. A dialogue circle, traditionally known as a yarning circle, is a verbal activity that allows students to not only consider their own thoughts and feelings, but to consider the thoughts and feelings of others through the sharing of stories and active listening. Bennett McLean 2000. Further, dialogue circles aim to build respectful relationships whilst allowing for collective group learning. Therefore, this teaching and learning strategy enhances student knowledge and understanding, which aligns with the notion of embedding Indigenous perspectives and pedagogies in schools. This strategy is referred to on several occasions throughout the delivery of this lesson. Utilising yarning circles within the lesson allows for the preservation and passing of knowledge, is a method used to teach using stories of which underlying themes and messages are embedded, and also allows for reflection and critical analysis as noted by Yunka Porter. The yarning circle is a culturally safe place that allows all students to speak freely and respectfully without judgment or interruption. As suggested by Ashley Saltner, the yarning circles would be guided by a specific question such as, what is your understanding of the relationship between plants and animals? The Examining Relationships of Living Things lesson incorporates elements of information and communication technology, or ICT, in an attempt to cater to the diverse needs of students. However, the manner in which this is presented does not recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture. The on-country adaptation of this lesson, coupled with traditional names and Indigenous community members' shares with students, provides a platform for the development of a video log, where students video local plants and animals and provide commentary about the relationships that exist between them using the Aboriginal language they've learned and reflecting on the content of the lesson. This also presents an assessment opportunity to determine student knowledge and understanding that considers Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives whilst aligning with the curriculum. Meaningful learning approaches and assessment, including the implementation of Indigenous perspectives and pedagogies alongside mainstream practices, enables students to connect curriculum content tangibly with land and culture, thus creating an inclusive and interesting space in which students from all backgrounds have the opportunity to learn and grow. I'd like to finish with acknowledging the support Ashley Saltner has provided in putting this assessment together. Ashley's vast knowledge and experience was invaluable in shaping the most effective approach to teaching this lesson. Please also see my reference list. Thank you very much for listening.